Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, we are talking about disrespectful adult sons, daughters, and teens. But we're also going to get into those with some type of personality disorder or undiagnosed mental illness. Basically, you are the parent who suspects that there's something wrong with your child. You don't know what exactly it is, but you know that the disrespect, the mean-spiritedness, their ego tripping, they tend to say some things that are off the wall, embarrassing, shameful. They have done some things that have gotten them in trouble, possibly with other family members or with law enforcement. This is a child or a young adult that just tends to do things that you don't see any change in sight, okay? As much as you want that child to be a productive member of society, you just don't see that happening, okay? We're also going to talk about those adult sons and daughters and teens who they need care, total care that you cannot provide. You're fearful that you might end up hurting this offspring. Okay. And I'm talking about in the worst way because you're burnt out with the fights. You're burnt out with them not wanting to get the job. You're burnt out with having to bathe and fix dinners and comb hair. And so I understand that there are those people who have gone to the Lord and said, I can't do this any longer. But then they're also grappling with, but this is my child. And I'm committed, but no, I can't do this. But I'm committed, but no, I can't do this. And then there are those things that occur where you're cussing and you're fussing and you're freaking out and you know you're not acting like yourself because this child has pushed you. And for some of you all, what I'm concerned about is that you're going to be pushed to the point of no return, like some of these parents in media who have stabbed children, shot children, threw children over, a balcony, a wall. Those parents who have punched children through walls, okay? And these stories are disturbing, but I'm the type of person that I want to look at what would drive a person to a point where they snap. What would drive a person to want to do something like this? Sometimes there's no definitive reason other than the fact that they lost it. They just lost it, okay? So how does a parent, let's start here. How does a parent get to a point where they freak out one day? Well, I can tell you that when you feel like your concerns are being ignored, let's say you are the parent that trained up a child in the way that they should go, right? You provided them with all sorts of resources. But then the child exhibits these signs that they need more than just prayer. They need more than just the laying on of hands, casting out of demons. They need more than just taking them to the local doctor and getting them another prescription. Now what? Okay. Some parents end up not doing too much of anything, but just going around the same circle, dealing with the same folks with no results. They're not willing to change. The, hospital is not too far from the house. They're not interested in researching about anything else. They're looking at all the cons before they look at the pros. But yet in their minds, they're starting to lose it though. People on the outside looking in start to see this is too much for you. This is too big for you. Your child freaking out, cussing and fussing. You can no longer handle it like you once did. Now you're talking about you want to, hurt them and hurt them bad. Okay. Now who's the one who is mentally touched, mentally disabled? That parent that's starting to lose it. Now, sometimes we can't see when a parent is starting to lose it, a step parent, a foster parent, a host home provider. We don't see it. And so when we don't see it, this is when we hear the stories. This is when somebody ends up with a mugshot or worse, in their grave. Once again, I feel so moved to keep people out of trouble. I must be in that season because the Lord keeps putting some things upon my spirit to keep some folks out of trouble. So I went to howtoadult.com, and I went there because I want to provide some solutions to some folks as issues arise. So we're going to start there. I went to some information dealing with foster care as well as group homes. Now, when would you need to contact a resource, whether it's a group home or foster care? Well, this comes in handy. These resources come in handy when you're dealing with a young adult, son, daughter, teen who needs just some care that you just can't give them any longer. Foster care and group homes are supervised living arrangements for people unable to live in a traditional family environment. Okay? So for you, that's what you should be looking for. If you just cannot deal with this person in your home any longer. Okay? Foster care provides a temporary family or group living arrangement for minors under 18, while group homes are for adults or children who are unable to live independently. So you got the 20-something-year-old, maybe even 30-something-year-old that you've been taking care of for so many years, and now I am so spent, I can't do it. I got my own health issues, says someone, right? So this is when you need to be looking into what resources in your community that will take someone in who is unable to live independently. Okay? Or you may be taking care of somebody else's child and you've had enough of the fighting and the punching the walls and the doing some things that you can't even tell anybody because they're so despicable. There is the foster care. Okay? Some reasons for placement. Children placed in foster care are often unable to live with their families because of abuse. The abuse may have taken place in the home. Neglect, parental imprisonment, or behavioral issues. Group living arrangements are usually for adults or children with disabilities or behavior problems. Okay? So, mom can't handle Jenny freaking out. She's punching, she's kicking, she's spitting, she's doing despicable things to her siblings. She's got to go. The neighbors know about Jenny. The police know about Jenny. The school officials know about Jenny. And mom does not have control over Jenny. She's got to go. Okay? But doesn't all this cost some money? Glad you asked. Group homes can be financed by organizations, either profit or nonprofit, or they can be funded by the government. So you might just have to get her diagnosed, get some Social Security benefits for her. And once she's approved for these sorts of things that you apply for, then there is some agency out there that would be glad to place Jenny somewhere where these individuals can best care for her. Foster care families are given funds by a state or county social service agency which monitors decisions related to care. Okay? What are the goals? According to howtoadult.com, the primary goals of group homes are to either provide long-term care or to help occupants become independent so they eventually can live independently. The goal of foster care is to provide children with a safe temporary environment until they can rejoin family become adopted or become emancipated at the age of 18. So those are the options. Some people bristle. I don't want her coming back. Okay, well, if you don't want her coming back, there is those hospitals. There are those organizations, agencies, what have you, where Jenny will not come back. Okay. Or once she's got necessary care, she can come back. But then if she freaks out again, you've got to have the numbers, the resources on standby. Okay. Then, of course, there's the option of becoming adopted if they're not so, off the chain out there doing God knows whatever. And then emancipated at the age of 18. Okay. Both foster care and group homes often are unable to accommodate the many people in need of their services. So keep that in mind. This person may be put on a waiting list. There are often waiting lists to receive foster care or be admitted to group homes. Okay. So I don't want to get people's hopes up high, but that happens. So what is the homework assignment for some of you all who this fits what you're going through right now? You're going to look up group homes, include your city and state, or foster care, city or state, based on what I just shared with you. Okay, we're going to move on to another group of children, young adults, who are giving some folks some issue with working. Okay. These individuals might have a harsh background, troubling. There is what I'm familiar with. I used to work there in San Diego, the Job Corps. Okay. The Job Corps is the largest free residential education and job training program for young adults ages 16 to 24. They connect you with the skills and the education you need to get what you want. Now, when I say you, I'm referring to those that are between the ages of 16 and 24. Okay, so that's not for us older adults. But it is for our young people who are trying to get a start in life. And unfortunately, they did not finish high school because there was too much distraction, right? The folks in the neighborhood was always up to no good. And so you can look toward any of the Job Corps. There are various ones in different states. And be that one that drives your child over to the Job Corps like you would if you were going to take them to a college or university or trade school, and be prepared to leave them there. There is on-campus housing. There's applications at the various Job Corps. You can go to www.jobcorps.gov. Okay. And then you could check to see if there is a Job Corps near you. All right. So once again, this is a great resource for those young adults who just don't have the skills, don't have the education. They do have a desire to want to work and get their own apartment. But Mom, I need my GED and, I need some help with this program and I really want to be a part of this. Job Corps can help with that. Okay. And keep in mind, don't be the parent that's always looking for the cons before the pros. Look at the positive attributes to each one of the organizations. Because if you were doing everything possible to help and still there's no help, this is when you've got to go outside of your mind, outside of your environment, outside of what people told you, outside of anyone or anything that's blocking you from getting the necessary help for your young adult or teen. And sometimes you just can't talk to people. You just have to be the one that puts that child in the car, drives them where they need to be driven. And if that parent or that grandparent or whoever objects to it, then they can go up there and get them out. Okay. And then they can share the grief and all the dramas and traumas that you went through. And of course, if you are one who has full custody, or you have some type of rights where nobody can touch that child, once you put them where you put them, then you exercise those rights. Now, for the ones who are just so foul, disrespectful, wanting to fight, wanting to create a war, if you will, with everybody up in the household, the solution would be military. Okay? Bottom line, they need to be around some tough folk. They got that tough demeanor. They think that they can, just kick what and take names later or something along those lines. They need to be in the military. If they have rejected everything else that you suggested and they just want to sit up in a room somewhere, then this is definitely an option. Oh, so you just want to sit on your computer all day? Mm-hmm. And you don't plan on getting a job? No. And you want to spend up my money doing some of your pleasures, whatever those might be. I mean, come on now. I'm your son. I'm your daughter. I think we got an option for you. And then you make necessary arrangements to have the recruiter show up. www.military.com enables the millions of Americans with military affinity to assess their benefits, find jobs, enjoy military discounts. Okay? So whether it's the U.S. Army, whether it's the Navy, the Marines, whoever, whatever, but you've had enough, and you might be that father or that mother that's like, I had to already put my hands on this one. I had to even go so far as to threaten my own child. Well, the discipline that you may have instilled, somehow it just didn't take. It just didn't sink in. The scripture that says, train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when he or she is older, they will not depart. Well, they're not old enough yet to really appreciate all of what you've done. So, military is the option for that hard-headed, rebellious one, or the one who simply has no other options and is just looking for a fast track, and wants to get out of the hood or out of, daddy's house or mama's house or cousin so-and-so's house. That is an option. And we're not going to get into colleges and universities or anything like that, because I'm dealing with people who got, at times, undiagnosed mental illness. There are those people that come on the channel that have their share of personality disorders, or the child that they keep bringing up in comments and letters. That child has, maybe an undiagnosed mental illness. So these are options that if they are functional and they can handle certain things, and military is an option. San Diego Job Corps, or Job Corps in Pennsylvania, Job Corps all around. Those are options. But if they, and then some of them, they're medicated and they can still handle military, or they can still handle, Job Corps. But then there are those that have a lot that's going on with them. And this is, once again, why group homes and foster care homes are around. Now, how about those with the mental issues that are in crisis? Okay. And they're going through it right now. I need some folks to call 1-800-273-TALK. And I need for you to share what the crisis is. You may be the one that's going through the crisis because you're dealing with the child with the crisis. Okay. There will be someone on the line that will help you in terms of how to deal with what you're going through. Okay. Hospitalization While the majority of people with mental health conditions will likely not need to spend time in a hospital or treatment center, an individual may need to be hospitalized so that they can be closely monitored and accurately diagnosed. This is how people end up with the diagnosis. So you've got someone in the family that keeps doing something odd, behavioral issues, you name it, but they're walking around here with an undiagnosed mental issue, but you know something's wrong mentally. They need to get to a hospital. And sometimes it takes something really bad to send them there, or it just might be you driving them up there and they're like, where are we going? Don't worry about it. You know, you come up with some kind of story. I'm not talking about saying a blatant lie, but some kind of story that's going to get them out the house and get them over to the hospital. Okay. And if you want to learn more about hospitalization, you can go to www.mentalhealthamerica.net/hospitalization. You can also take a look at the links, finding help for yourself, finding help for someone else, the mental health treatments. There's various ones. You might have to find therapy, right, for someone. So you can put that in the search engine, or you can go to the mentalhealthamerica.net site. Find a support group. Maybe it's not something that's really crazy, really bizarre, really strange, but maybe it is. Are there other people out there like that person? You find that out going to a support group. They might need to be medicated. As we mentioned, they might need to be hospitalized. They might need inpatient care. Okay, so this website has all sorts of information. There's even the clinical trials, okay, to find out what people are going through, and electroconvulsive therapy and psychiatric advanced directives that are given on the site. So the help is there, but people who just want to do things in their own strength, or they're just too lazy, or they procrastinate, or they hope and pray that somebody's going to get better, they just don't utilize what's in front of them. And you may have been guilty of it. Don't beat yourself up. You're getting information now. So you've got homework to do after you listen to this audio. Okay, so boarding schools. Why would someone put their children in a boarding school? Well, I will tell you that the reason for this is because sometimes children don't do well among children in a traditional public school setting or a private school setting. Now, if you have a troubled teen and you want them to be a success and you got a little money to spend, or you might even be able to get a discount or some type of, financial aid, call 888-940-6278. This is a phone number that leads you to Boarding School USA. They've got a boarding school directory. They list on their website schools by state, gender, and type. That's boardingschools.us if you want to take a look. There's military schools on that website. There's boarding schools. There's therapeutic schools. Okay? All of these resources are available. And every single state has a boarding school, from Alabama to Wisconsin, okay? And even in the Caribbean. So if you got, like I said, little money to spend, and you know that neighborhood school is just not doing it, you've switched your child around here, there, and everywhere, and still, and on top of it, you know your house is a distraction. You know that you're working long hours and you're not really paying attention to what's going on. Let's just be honest. Some parents are. Boarding school is a good option. All right. Juvenile detention centers. Why would somebody end up seeing their child off to a juvenile detention center? This is because this child has committed crimes. And it's not that you did it. The state did it. Law enforcement did it. They're too young to go to jail. They're 18 years old. They go to jail. But less than that, you got to go to a juvenile detention center. So you've got that child who wants to steal, wants to even kill. You've got that child who destroys all sorts of things, property, and the police have been repeatedly called, or the child is on his or her way to getting in trouble with law enforcement. This is where they're going to end up. And you can sit down with them and show them all the different juvenile detention centers in your state. Okay? So this is something that will scare some children straight, because when they see that there's a juvenile detention center and you drive past that place, or you even pull up to the juvenile detention center. Oh, wait a minute. What are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Okay. What do you think I'm doing? I don't know what you're doing. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm showing you where your new home is. You see, I'm telling you, kids, especially the ones that are wannabe thugs, some of them who's thinking that they're bad, and you know that, wait a minute, you were a straight A student last year, and now suddenly you're hood. Get out of here. Take them up to the juvenile detention center. Take them over there to the police station. Have a bunch of police officers come from behind their desk. Take a look at your child. I did that. I went down to the police station with all four of mine, and the man come from behind the desk, tall police officer. Then there were other ones walking back and forth. You should have seen those kids' eyes wide. I said, you want this to be your future home? He showed us a holding cell, and he gave those kids a speech. All right. Now, there are homeless shelters. What? Why would I want to put my child in a homeless shelter? They want to keep running away from home? You got one of those? They want to act like they don't have an address? Well, they need to experience a homeless shelter. So you look for homeless shelters near your location. Homeless shelters are sometimes associated with churches or municipal governments. They are funded by the government, and many homeless shelters are being erected across the country to combat the growing percentage of homeless people in America. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is a space, website, if you will, resource that you could take a look at. And there are family shelters, there's rehab centers, there's youth shelters, okay? You can look at the homeless shelter list online at shelterlist.com. There's, this is a free website, okay? And you can look under homeless housing services. And you can also look up food services. And there's also the family shelters for supportive living and short-term housing too. But somebody wants to, just take for granted your house. Take for granted the hours that you set, the curfew, when they're to come home. Okay, there's a homeless shelter. They'll have to abide by the homeless shelter's rules. If they had a roommate, they would have to abide by those rules. If they were living with somebody else, they would have to abide by those rules. So sometimes it takes somebody being in a homeless shelter for them to wake up. And this business of, well, I don't want to put my child on the street. You're not putting your child on the street. You just heard me say homeless shelter. Well, a lot of stuff happens. Do you want to teach that child, discipline that child, get that disrespectful, ornery child out of your house or young adult? You'll get them on a fast track sooner rather than later if you stop giving them all their comforts. I'm talking to somebody. You got these people who always find fault with resources. They always got an issue with what we tell them. You don't want the help then. And if you don't want the help, then no sense in opening up your mouth and complaining or getting on people's channels and talking about all your woes. We get tired of that. We say, when is somebody going to do something about someone? Okay? And we got a lot of folks who they are great at complaining. Absolutely great at complaining, but what are you doing about it? We've got these rude adult children, simply put. Okay. And these rude adult children tend to have a lot of the comforts. Okay. These aren't children that are without. A lot of them, they have a lot of the comforts that many children around the world don't have. And so, once they get past a certain age, and a lot of folks say once they get in the teenage years, you pretty much lost them. You need some options in terms of discipline. You got to have a frank discussion first and foremost. Here is what's going on. Here's what I don't like. And here's what's going to happen if you don't shape up. Oh, you're not going to send me to no foster care home. You're not going to send me to no boarding school. I'm not going to no San Diego Job Corps. I'm not going to the military. I'm not going to no juvenile detention center, aka juvie. I'm not doing none of that. Oh, well, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? What I think is going to happen is you're going to go in there and make me some breakfast, mama and daddy. I'm giving you an example of how smart mouth some people can be, right? My kids don't talk that way, but I'm giving an example. And so you're sitting there, and what you going to do? You going to be that parent that gets up and cooks some breakfast? Lord Jesus, God didn't raise any fools. No, what you're going to do is you're going to be that parent that says, these are your options. And I'm prepared to drive you there, or I can have you, or you can download Lyft on your phone that you like to spend so much time in, and have Lyft drive you there, or I can get a couple of folks to come pick you up. But all I know is that we're not going to continue to have you disrespect or disregard. Now, the typical way of handling a situation with an adult child or teen is the typical get a job, okay, save your money, and then you get your own place. But if you got the smart mouth one that's talking about what they're not going to do, then this is when you're going to have to find a place for them, which is called military, which is called foster care, homeless shelters. There's options. And all of them, notice, have nothing to do with them staying in your house. Okay? Now, for those who, they got plenty of sense. They're just not using it. They don't have any type of mental issue going on with them. You may be able to have yet another discussion with them. But some personal things you can do, according to livestrong.com, an article on how to deal with rude adult children, is redefine your relationship with your adult child and consider how that affects your behavior toward each other. For instance, if you're in a position where your child is supporting you, your child sometimes assumes a more parental role. So if that child is bringing some money to the table, if that child is helping you with your bills, if that child is taking care of you in any kind of way, then that is why he or she feels like they are more of a parent than you are. But see, here's what you have to do, according to the article. Don't allow your redefined relationship to lower your worth as a parent. Allowing your adult child to treat you poorly. Considering the changes in your relationship helps you identify why your adult child is being rude. Okay? Maybe they're frustrated. Maybe they're bent out of shape. Maybe they do want to leave, but you keep guilting them into staying. Okay? So you've got to be clear in terms of what you want your child to do. Okay? And stick to what it is that you want them to do. You want them to move on. You want them to have a prosperous life. Then you need to consistently be about encouraging them to do that rather than trying to keep them close to you in this love-hate sort of relationship. Okay, the next step. Arrange for a time to speak with your adult child about what we've talked about today. The disrespectful, rude, arrogant, downright, lazy, procrastinating sort of child. Okay? Acknowledge any changes that have altered your relationship and let your child know how his rudeness affects you. Okay? Now, the other thing I suggest is that you pray about all of this before you even sit down with that child, before you even breathe one word to anyone who might be supportive, who might be able to drive your child here, there, and everywhere. someone who may be a listening ear, somebody who could help financially. Before you breathe one word, you be in prayer. I'll tell you that before I talked to my children's father about an issue, the first two, I would be like, Lord, in the name of Jesus, give me the words to say, because you know how this man can be sometimes, right? And I'm telling you, God, he just allowed the words to come out my mouth. Even before I wrote letters, same thing. And sometimes that's what it takes. But don't talk yourself out of, nah, that'll never work. No, I don't think I'll get that type of support. Oh, his father will give me HELL about it. His grandmother, look, do you want to be free out of this situation concerning this rude, disrespectful, arrogant child? Or do you want to keep on with this foolishness about what you can't do, what somebody else isn't going to go along with? Because see, if you do get any sort of backlash from anybody, once you're on your way to getting your child where he or she needs to be, you can use a lawyer, right? You can use law enforcement. You can even get Big Brother and some cousins to be there at the home when you announce the information, or be out in a public space, which is better, just in case somebody is carrying something because they just can't stand the fact that you're doing what you're doing. But you can no longer deal with this disrespectful, rude, arrogant child, adult son, daughter, okay, teen. I get it. So you're arranging to make the time to speak with the child, but you're also making the time to speak with anybody who might have some type of legal rights to the child or what have you. Acknowledge any changes that have altered your relationship and let your child know how his rudeness affects you. Stay calm and avoid making accusations. Instead, use I statements to take responsibility for your actions and emotions. So, for instance, I am so sorry that I put you in this situation, or I am so sorry that you have been affected so negatively by this thing, or I understand that you want to get out of the house, but there are ways to do that without, flipping the household upside down. I get that you are angry at me. You see what I mean? And in this way, that will kind of diffuse the situation a bit. Instead of saying you treat me badly, say I feel insignificant when you raise your voice at me because that feels disrespectful. See, sometimes children don't recognize, oh, I'm being disrespectful, because they talk like that with their friends. They talk like that with their cousins. They talk like that with everybody. And so you come along and you're talking about don't be disrespectful. You just started living here. What, you talk like that with your daddy? You saying all of that, but they're not seeing it as disrespectful. So you need to be clear. Now, once again, these are children who you can talk some sense, right? They still have a rational mind. Okay. They don't have any type of disability that, they can say, oh, well, that's my issue or my problem or whatever. Okay. That's causing me to act this way. You know that all it is laziness, procrastination, whatever. So at the end of the day, there's something that needs to be done, son. You don't need to be short-tempered with me, raising your voice. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. I need for you to do, and then you write those things down. Okay? That way, they can't say, I don't remember what you said. No, did you refer back to the notes? Did you refer back to the recording? Things like that. But you set those clear expectations for their behavior. Even if you rely on your adult child for support, or your child has moved out and no longer answers to you, you still dictate how you're treated. So once that time does come and they do move out, there is that tendency to want to, hey, I got my own place now. You can't tell me this. You can't tell me that. Excuse me, but I'm still your mother. I'm still your father. Okay. And if that's the type of attitude that you're going to pull with me, then we could distance ourselves big time. And I'm going to get into that. So in the article, livestrong.com, how to deal with rude adult children. Explain that you expect to be treated respectfully by everyone, especially your adult children. Clarity helps to foster open communication between you and your adult child. Step 4, stop making excuses for your adult child's behavior. Telling yourself that your daughter was short with you because she's stressed at work. I remember, oh my goodness, one of my relatives would do that. And I'm like, this isn't about her being so stressed with whatever's going on in her household. This is about the fact that you're letting her get away with some things because you have put her in a parental role. And now you're acting like the child. And she did that because she relied just way too much on her. Heavily. I mean, go get this, do that. And so she felt like, well, I could tell you, mama, this, that, and the other. And that is your problem. So distance, yourself a bit, and don't give them all those responsibilities. Yeah, it's nice to have somebody do some things for you, but if they're giving you a nasty attitude, you fire them, right? You would do it if you were at a workplace and you were a manager. Oh, you want to act like this? I'm a document, and then eventually terminate. So do it with some of your family members. And last points from the article: withdraw yourself from the relationship if the behavior continues. While you may not be able to put your adult child in timeout for rudeness, right? Because we're not talking about children that you could put in timeout. We're talking about teens and young adults. You can take a timeout from spending time together. You see, maybe those lunches that you were paying for. I'm about to save some money because I don't like all this disrespect. And those shopping sprees. Nope. I'm not going out there with her. I can get Lyft or Uber or somebody to drive me. I don't need her to drive me. You see, I could get my best friend to help me fill out some forms, or I can look for my own supports where a person can come once a week or twice a week to aid me. Okay. And you can find that information out with the Human Services Department. You may income qualify for somebody to come and check up on you. Then that way you don't have to rely on that rude, disrespectful, ornery adult son or daughter. Okay. So show your child that a relationship with you is no longer a necessity, but a privilege. Respect is a two-way street, and you needn't continuously submit yourself to rudeness and disrespect at the hands of your own child. Return as an active contributor to the relationship once your child acknowledges his behavior, apologizes, and commits to acting more respectfully in the future. Okay? Once again, that process, 5 steps, comes from livestrong.com, how to deal with rude adult children. I'm telling you, I've given you more than enough information today, but I know that there are so many different people in different stages with their children. And so the resources are there. And these are children too. I must add that many of them live at home still with the parents. They're not on their own. And they have the nerve to be this way, Nicole. Somebody's saying, yes, disrespectful, rude, you name it. And we're not tolerating it. The child of God is nobody's punching bag, nobody's carpet to walk all over. Take all of your burdens over to the one true God in the name of Jesus and ask him to direct your path, to give you the words to speak, to give you the boldness like a lion, right? That courage to do what it takes to get the job done concerning this problem. Used to be a child for some folks, right? A loving, sweet, kind child. Now is a problem. You really think God would want you to keep dealing with all sorts of things? No, he gives us resources when we put our burdens in his hands. Well, that is it. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Like, subscribe, comment. We do welcome giving, and thanks in advance.